Namaskar, warm greetings from DELNET Developing Library Network, New Delhi, India. It's a profound honor and pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar session, which will shortly be delivered by Dr. Vinodh Ilangovan, who has joined us all the way from TIB Hannover from Germany on open research, knowledge graph, find the research you are actually looking for. It's a profound honor and pleasure for DELNET at the very outset to extend a very cordial, welcome to Dr. Vinodh Ilangovan. Thank you so very much, Dr. Vinodh, for joining us today and for acceding to our request in sharing your vast expertise with each one of us, the library fraternity from across, not only from India, from many other parts of the world. And thank you so very much for your time and efforts in being there this afternoon and this morning, from Germany. Thank you very much, and a very, very cordial welcome to you, hearty welcome to you on this platform today. Thank you so very much, Dr. Vinodh. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your kind invitation, ma'am. And also, it's my pleasure to actually present the work in the DELNET community, which is quite large, and it's spanning across multiple nations. So I'm very, very glad to present the work that we do from TIB Hannover.
So shall I get started? Yeah, I'll just give you a minute more, just allow me a minute more. And we also take this occasion to also welcome all our esteemed colleagues who have been able to join us from India and from many other countries, and also the researchers and scholars, as today's topic of the deliberation is all being centered around, this open research knowledge graph on which our esteemed speaker has got a huge expertise, and we all are looking forward, to listening to him. We are much being overwhelmed, with the response that we have been able to receive it for this webinar session, and I must truly appreciate and admire, the interest being shown by our community, not only the librarians, but also the researchers and scholars. More than 1,300 participants from various parts of India and many other countries, and just to name a few, including from Bahrain, Canada, Mali, Netherlands, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Turkey, UAE, and USA, who are there with us today in this webinar session. As the topic of the webinar indicates, that Dr. Vinodh Ilangovan is going to speak on open research knowledge graph, and one could notice from the subtitle, find the research you are actually looking for. And that, yes, it's not only the researchers and scholars who are, it's also the librarians, allied professionals who are always, all the time, keep themselves, open enough to see that how they can assist and they can help out the researcher and scholarly community. And we have such a distinguished speaker, an esteemed speaker, Dr. Vinodh Ilangovan, and I take immense pleasure in introducing you all to Dr. Vinodh, who is an curation coordinator for the Open Research Knowledge Graph at the German National Library of Science and Technology, TIB, which is the Lebens Information Center for Science and Technology at Hannover, Germany. It brings back the wonderful memories of visiting TIB more than 15 years ago. And it's indeed a pleasure and honor for us that Dr. Vinodh Ilangovan is being associated at TIB. With a background in biomedical sciences and currently working on cementing structuring of scholarly outputs, Dr. Vinodh co-founded the Open Science Community at Hannover to promote open and transparent practices in scholarship by cultivating responsible behaviors and scientific research. He is being the curation coordinator at Open Research Knowledge Graph, and each one of us really look forward now in listening to Dr. Vinodh Ilangovan, and also the pioneering work that he's being engaged with while being at TIB, which is one of the most acclaimed institution of an international standing. And we are indeed so much honored and feel a pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Vinodh. Thank you so very much for acceding to our request, and it also brings back the memories of your being here at DELNET couple of years ago, and I'm really, really very happy and delighted that we are able to have this wonderful occasion to get reconnected with you. And thank you so very much. A very, very warm, cordial welcome once again to you. And now I would like to request you to kindly start the proceedings of this webinar session. Over to you, Dr. Vinodh.
Yeah, thank you very much again for the wonderful invitation and the warm welcome. So are the slides visible, ma'am?
Yes, very much, Dr. Vinodh, yes.
Excellent. So then I'm now seeing myself. I can't move this panel for some reason.
You are visible.
Okay.
You're visible.
Yeah.
Slides are also visible. Yes.
Yeah. So the kind of work that I'm going to present today is, in large part, it's from our whole team, the Open Research Knowledge Graph team, headed by Professor Zoran Auer at TIB Hannover. Due to data privacy reasons, I do not have pictures of all of our group, but yeah, you could imagine it's not just one person pulling up this work. I'm only representing part of what we do, but it's a huge effort from everyone who had contributed to developing this. Slides are not moving for some reason, so let me. Does it move now?
Very much, Dr. Vinodh. Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Before I go into the topic, I actually wanted to remind us that how digitalization has affected us in everyday life. For example, I mean, if I had to really come to DELNET without knowing where DELNET is, 20 years ago, I would have had to look at the tourist map and then kind of try to find my way out, even where in this particular map, there won't be mentions of DELNET because I have to like really look for what street it is, what road it is, and so on. But these days, we do have a powerful tool in our hand, which is, whatever maps we call it as digital maps. You can either use OpenStreetMaps or Google Maps. So if I type DELNET in the map, then I can actually locate where it is, and I can try to find my commute way. And you can also zoom in and see what is near. If there are traffic jam or traffic warnings, I can see the maps in different views, like satellite view, a traffic view, or a transit view, and so on and so forth. I could also see additional features such as what's the opening time of DELNET, and when can I visit, and are there interesting places around that I can go, and how I can commute to this place, and so on. So this is all cool and fantastic impacts that digitalization had in our lives. But the most important factor is that the whole event that we are conducting now, I do not have to actually transfer or transport all myself to DELNET right now. I can just sit in Hannover and then do this webinar because the digitalization has allowed us this profound experience that we can be in our own home offices and then try to present and disseminate information very effectively. So that already proves how much in the past couple of years digitalization has impacted our lives in every field that we actually interact with. For example, we do not use printed maps anymore. We do not order any materials from printed, mail order catalogs, or we do not actually go and find volumes and volumes of encyclopedia. Rather, we use, digital encyclopedia, which is Wikipedia, or similar encyclopedia methods. And we also use like smartphone aided maps, and we also have digitized shopping experience for all of us. So information flows in the digital era has actually disrupted the whole in-print business, and then it has kind of outdated, we are pacing up in a way where a lot of information can just be in our kind of fingers, so as to say. But if you think of scholarly communication or science in general, what has happened? So over 300 years ago, the initial method of scholarly communication, which is to actually disseminate results by printing it in a publication, happened. And even in times of Einstein, this has not changed. We have only been printing articles in order to disseminate to other peers in the network, or also to other patrons of the library, for example. So everyone had access to printed materials from the library. So you had to go to the library in order to search for the cards, and then you would then kind of try to find this publication, and the librarians would be helping us a lot. And even in 20 years ago, and even today, we are making better and better PDF articles, but we haven't moved from there. So the search filter functionality has changed a little bit from catalog cards to using a powerful digital search medium. But the content that is present inside the scholarly content that's present inside the communicative piece is locked inside a PDF, which is similar to a digital version of the printed books, but the knowledge is not actually extracted out of it. So one could say, or at least in my opinion, science does not harvest the full potential of digitalization. We have digitized many things, but we have not completely digitized it. And as a consequence of this document-centered information flow is that there's a publication flood, which is more than 2.5 million publications are published every year. Not 1 million, not 1 billion, but we spent around $1 trillion US dollars of money on research, which is probably now getting on the lower side. But I think globally we spend a lot of money on research, and also there's quite a lot of time of the researchers that is spent on doing this research. And at the end, we are drowning into this publication flood. And even in small fields, researchers lack an overview, and there's quite a lot of loss of knowledge because of this information overload. And if you want to answer a specific question in a niche research area, it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. So it is almost impossible to really answer specific questions without going through volumes and volumes of documents, which are again the problem of document-centric information flow. So this is just for the science in general and scientists or scholarly communication in general. But there are also other problems that are associated with such kind of document-centered information flow, which is predatory publishing, as we all know. So there are a lot of predatory journals that would try to, come in as proper publishers, and then they would try to get the content, and then it can have a kind of deficient peer review mechanism, and that gets published. And apart from that, we're all aware of how some commercial actors have monopolized scholarly communication, scholarly publication in general, and that also leads to reproducibility crisis for the researchers in general, because there's quite a lot of information and they do not know which one exactly to follow and which one to build upon their research on. And when they start doing that, then they also immediately find a lot of flaws that are associated with that kind of research, where they're not able to reproduce more than 50% of research that is done in cancer biology, for example. So one could then say that if I want to ask a specific question, for example, CRISPR, I come from the biomedical science field, and CRISPR is a technology that is used to edit and modify genomes. So if I search for CRISPR in Google Scholar, for example, or you could use any of your powerful search engine or search tool like Semantic Scholar and so on, you could get closer to 1 million results. But these do not answer specific questions. So I have like 1 million results of documents that describe something about CRISPR. But if I want to ask a specific question about who applied CRISPR to Lepidopterans, or the group that butterflies belong to, and how to apply this CRISPR technology with minimal costs, and how do different genome editing techniques compare to this particular technique, I have to go through 1 million documents, which is humanly not possible. One could say that you could use maybe like better keywords, you can use filter search and so on. But if I'm not really working in this particular field, it is very difficult for me to answer these specific questions. So one can now say that, yeah, with the power of artificial intelligence, maybe that can help. And the question is, can artificial intelligence really help me review the literature? And the answer is yes, it can help us review the literature. There are quite a lot of artificial intelligence tools, but the problems with those are sometimes you have to pay for those services, or even if you pay, it is not guaranteed that these services will provide you results without hallucination, because it's trying to scan through a lot of documents that are just not scientific. So there would always be a skepticism against what these artificial intelligence tools are doing. And most of the artificial intelligence tools or the large language models are a black box, and it is we cannot completely understand that. So it's not that everyone who has to interact with artificial intelligence or large language model tools have to understand that, but the prospect of having it as an open box where people can investigate on what is going is very essential, because even if I as a person or my grandmother as a person might not be able to understand what is happening there, but someone else might be able to look into that and say that this algorithm exactly brings data from this particular source, and this is exactly what we are looking at. So this is true to the extent that 99.5%, I can be sure that this is the answer that we get from this, and this is true. So to do that, we use something called as the ORKG Ask, which is the Open Research Knowledge Graph assistant for scientific knowledge, which we call it as Ask. So which actually searches through a whole list of 75 million publications, which is from the core database, and you can actually find the research that you are looking for. So I would briefly stop here and show you a demo of how the ORKG Ask works before going into the details of how, what are the features of it. So I would stop there, and I would also encourage you to, play it along side by side if you would like to. So I would actually open up this page, and you could go to ask.orkg.org, and you can create an account there. So without creating an account, you could still ask a question, but creating an account over there actually helps, because it can be valuable for you to save your searches, and then you could also create your own library to search through, and so on. So over here, we do not use keywords anymore. We actually use natural language questioning. For example, how to use CRISPR. In butterflies. I use the natural language question, and then I get an answer, which is usually based on the top 5 results. So it's a system that is trying to load answers in live, so it takes a while, or at least in the version that I'm now using a lot of power in the internet. So now you could see that I've got an answer, but more importantly, there is a disclaimer that says that the answer that is extracted was obtained from large language model and might contain errors and accuracies, and we need to check them. And where exactly this answer has been generated, it is now showing that this answer is generated from 76 million articles, and for which the abstracts are openly accessible. And since there are a lot of 200 million scientific important publications for answering my right question might be missing, but I can at least use this method in order to categorize information that I need instead of going through a lot of articles. So this particular answer that is provided is extracted from top 5 papers that are closer to the question that I've asked, so which is what is shown below. But I can also load more results that are relevant and try to find articles that are relevant to my research. The most important feature of, since I've already been using it, I'm not going to provide any feedback. So you can also provide your feedback over here. So I'll kindly close that for the purpose of this demo so that you can see my screen better. So I look at this, and then you have the title of the article, and then you have the authors. And in this case, I know these authors quite well because I've actually read one of their papers that was published a few years ago, which is in December 2020, which is more than 4.5 years or 5 years ago. Also in this particular case, this is not a very well-known article, but someone has used it on butterflies, which I was not earlier aware of, and now I am aware of, which is published in some obscure journal that I was not reading it. So this way I can actually track down what articles that I need, and I can also select and make a list of, so these are articles that I'm interested in, so I'm just going to use those information, and this is something that I already know, and this is a new article that I'm not aware of, and so on and so forth. So the most interesting part here is that, here, I can now show you the answer, the insights that is provided, and there's a summary of too long didn't read kind of summary. And it also provides further elements across what we can do in this research. For example, we go and scroll it towards the left. You also have things like conclusions, results, and methods. So if I'm interested in what kind of methods they have used, because within CRISPR, there are different methods like CRISPR-Cas9, CRISPR-Cas11, and so on and so forth. And there's also CRISPR knockouts. So you can now see that they have used different methods in this particular article. And CRISPR-9 is the one that is repeatedly done. And then there's like even more extended methods on using how they've achieved their sampling using PCR and DNA extraction, and so on. And this also leads to asking more specific questions where I can actually edit the columns. For example, the columns that I see were answers, insights, summary, conclusions, results, and methods. But for example, if I don't need the insights, so I would maybe remove the insights and use methods that should be visible that is next to each other. And then I don't need the too long then read summary, and maybe I don't need to judge them for conclusions, but I'll just use the results. And there's an opportunity for us to also add a new column. For example, what are the knockouts that are being present in this particular. I'm using one of the keywords, which is the knockouts. So I'm just using that. So you could also use another keyword like species, for example. So if you use that, and maybe I bring that before methods, and now the columns will actually change live, where you could see, I'll just quickly scroll down, and you could go up and see that things have changed. The columns are now changed. So there's answer, there's species, and methods. So now I could filter using, okay, they have used these Lepidopteran insects, and here in this case they have specifically named the species of Bicyclus anania, and this one has used cockroach and tribolium, which is not interesting for me, so I have not selected this. And then this says it's not applicable, so maybe I want to look deeper into this article and then kind of wanted to understand this, so I would maybe not select it for the moment. And here again they've used Heliconius butterfly species, so which I've already selected because I know this article because I've read it earlier. And now there's also other articles that look into butterfly species, which I can select and create a list. So when I do this, there is a possibility to save my searches if I am logged in. So now I'm going to search. So if you have not logged into ORKG Ask, you can still do the same search, but you cannot save this search. And that is why I encourage you to actually go to ask.orkg.org and then create an account. So it is radically open and free because everyone can use it. It is a service offered by the German National Library for Science and Technology, so which means it is a project funded by the public funding in Germany. And we also collaborate with the core UK services for getting the data, and which is an open and transparent way. And also the whole large language model that is operating behind the ORKG Ask is built on open principles, so which means it's not a hidden model. So everyone can look and interact with this model if you have the right skills to really understand what is happening behind the large language model. So I would slow down my screen and then start the presentation again. So the answer is, of course, artificial intelligence can help us. And my slides are not moving again for some reason. So, oh, yeah. So this is what I wanted to show basically as a demo, but now you have that. So maybe, I don't know if I can access the chat, but so this is the URL for the service that we provide, which is ask.orkg.org. So if you go there, you can use it without creating an account. But if you create an account, you can save your searches. And there's also other features like you can use selective filters and use this particular service. And this is again a larger screenshot in the dark mode where you can see different columns, where you can also have filter. You can filter it using the year, and you can also filter it using language, because if you are a language researcher and if you want to only filter articles that are in specific language, you can do that. And also ORKG Ask as a service, we are also trying to develop into multiple languages, because people or scholarly literature that is published in language other than English, if you want to interact with that, we are also developing such features for that. On the background of it, if there are people who are interested in knowing what exactly is working, when we do a user query, because now we do not use just keywords, but we use something called as natural language questioning. So for that, we use embedding model called Nomic, for which the user query is taken. And then the semantic search is done by the vector store and quadrant. And the information is extracted and filtered results are provided using the large language model Mistral 7B on its version 0.2. The data set that this current model uses is from core data set, which is the world's largest collection of open access research articles. And it actually has around 80 million articles, but we have selected around 75 or 76 million for which the abstracts are available, and for which we are able to access those, and then we are able to make sense out of that using the large language model. And out of the 80 million articles, there's like 19 or close to 19 million publications have full text, but the rest of them only have abstracts, and some of them only have metadata associated with it. And that is why from the 80 million, you have 76 kind of, a little lesser than 80 million, which have been filtered to use in the ORKG system. So all of that is fine. But what about hallucinations? What about mission actionability? What about community standards and peer review? So these are questions that often researchers come up with, because when you use a large language model or an artificial intelligence, we also know that it often tends to hallucinate. And in this case, we also provide a warning saying that there might be certain inaccuracies and you need to look into it carefully. But one can use this as a search and discovery system, where you can actually find related articles. You can also find related properties that you are specifically interested in. For example, when I want to only look for species of butterflies, I was able to filter select those, and then I was able to show them. So that is what we do. And with peer review and community standards, one could always be that it's not up to an individual to decide, but as a community, we need to decide on that. So back to the same example of the maps. So we have an assistant to help us deal with and add additional functionalities, which is the ORKG ask, but we are still not there where we can automatically have additional features where just by typing in, we are able to look into all these automatically extracted additional features. So this brings us to the question of why we bury information first and then mine it again using artificial intelligence and so on. So this was actually a question that was posed 20 years ago by Baron Mons, where he said that a lot of data mining that we do is by extracting information that we have already buried into the article by publishing it. So what if we are actually able to extract information at the stages while the article is being written or while it's being published, rather than after it's being published? Although it is a challenging question, because the moment it is published, as I mentioned, there's quite a lot of commercial interest in or commercial actors in the scholarly publication industry who actually gatekeep and protect all the information that should be available for researchers and research machines that could actually extract and make meaningful sense out of that data that's available. And so it is time for us to rethink scholarly communication. And I particularly like this quote that is by Oren Harari, where the light bulb was not invented by improving the candle, but similarly, we have to digitalize knowledge and not just documents. So digitalization, we need to understand the difference between digitalization and digitization. Digitalization is extracting information and making it more machine accessible and making sense out of it with human assistance. And digitization is basically converting a physical copy into a digitized version. So what we are actually doing is making better and better digital PDFs or making better. So the analogy that with the maps that I would say is, we took a large map, scanned it, and made a PDF, and we haven't actually achieved a functionality that we use with OpenStreetMaps or Google Maps these days. So that is how it is. And in order to change that and challenge that, we use knowledge graphs. Knowledge graphs are not new in the field. It has been always there. And we use that as an open research knowledge graph because it only deals with scholarly content or scholarly communicative content. We call it as open research knowledge graph. Radically, it is open, which means everyone is open to look at the data, everyone is open to interact with the data, and everyone can also contribute to the data. The only part is when we need to contribute to this research graph or the open research knowledge graph, what happens is that we need to track the provenance of who added the data, and for that you need to create an account. So if you have created already an account for the ORKG ask, then you can interchangeably use that with ORKG, because then we have these two systems that are cross-talking to each other. But as the name suggests, it's an open research knowledge graph. And the important feature within the knowledge graph is that, as I go again to this butterfly CRISPR example, where on the left-hand side you have an article from a bioarchive, a preprint, which is talking about CRISPR technology in Lepidoptera, to which the butterflies belong to. And in a knowledge graph view, so in the left-hand side, you only look at the dense text material, and I had to read this article. So if I had to read this article, it takes me at least effectively 60 to 90 minutes in order for me to scan through it and understand what they have done. And even for an expert, it takes that long in order to understand and identify the data that is associated with it, and what are the data analysis that they've done, and then what are the conclusions they have arrived. So imagine if I have to go through a million articles that are similar to this, it's going to take me million human hours, which is insanely, which is insane, and it's inhumanly possible. So in order to do that, use knowledge graph from papers, we go into knowledge, which is you have a title, and Robert Reed, for example, is the author of this particular article, and this article addresses genome editing in Lepidoptera, to which the butterflies belong to, and it has a sub-problem of genome editing, and it is implemented by CRISPR-Cas9, and it is evaluated with an experimental data that has a DOI for the data. So now we represent all of this in terms of relationships towards the title of the article. So when we represent the knowledge that is present in the world using entity maps, or like linking them using knowledge graphs, they form the basis for knowledge graphs. And this knowledge graphs are the basis for many things that you see. For example, the recommendations that you see in your online shopping, or in your Netflix, or whatever streaming services that you use, or even if you have bought this, you might also be interested in this. So these kind of algorithms work actually based on knowledge graph. So this has been in the industry. We just it's not very widely used for scholarly communication. And in the open research knowledge graph, we try to use that the basis of knowledge graph in order to really empower research and find research that we are actually looking for. One example is the COVID-19, the reproductive estimates. So I personally like this example because I'm trained as a biomedical scientist, and also COVID-19 pandemic is something that every one of us can relate to, because when COVID-19 was happening, there were a lot of articles that were published that were contradicting each other. One was saying the reproductive number estimates, or the doubling time of a virus when people are infected in the beginning stages of the pandemic would be like 5 days, 3 days, so on and so forth. So we were all confused with a lot of information that was around, and then we didn't know, or at least we as individuals didn't know what to do, but also larger organizations and larger bodies like government organizations were also trying to extract information out of the published literature in order to really give valuable guidance to the citizens, and provide or make policies around that. So this is a comparison that we have made, after the pandemic. I mean, this was not available during the pandemic, but if such an information was available during the pandemic, it is easier for people to make policies around that, and then also extract relevant information around that. So what you see is actually comparing multiple articles about COVID-19 pandemic, or the reproductive estimates of the virus in different locations. So what you see on the gray column is that these are different properties for which each articles have been extracted for, or the salient properties that are made machine readable using the open research knowledge graph. And in orange shade, what you see is like each of those articles that are provided in, the information has been extracted and they are provided in a tabular view. This is actually for the human side of it, like for human actionability, we provide it as a table because we can make sense out of it. But for the machine actionability, what you have is like each of those rows are the properties that has been extracted from each of those articles. I've just only highlighted there. So each of that, you could see that this particular article is from Lombardy in Italy, this article is from Iran, and also this article is from Iran, and the other article is from Singapore. And if I'm particularly interested in the value of, or the basic reproduction estimate value of COVID-19 pandemic, or coronavirus in general, so I could look at this value, and then in Italy it has been the value has been around 3.1, and in Iran it has been around 3.5 to 3.6, and then in Singapore it has been around 1.2. So based on this, I can now quickly understand that across different geographical locations, there are differences. And each of these countries can then formulate a specific policies for how they are going to control the mechanisms. But as a researcher, I'm also interested in the statistical value, which has been here extracted, where you get like a lower confidence limit and upper confidence limit, which I can also look into it. And I can also look into what specific method they have used and which time interval particularly they have used in this particular article. So this is one screenshot of an example of a larger comparisons that we have. You can also compare across multiple articles. I think currently we have it around 200 comparisons of such pandemic comparisons, and you could also compare it across different diseases. And that is exactly what I'm going to show here. So what you can actually do is not just compare that and make it mission actionable, but you can also have a visualization that is created, a visualization that does not exist or created from one particular article, but generated across multiple articles, which is usually not happening across 200 or so articles. So in this visualization, you could see in comparison, how does COVID-19 compare to other pandemics or other diseases, other deadly diseases, and so on. So you can create such powerful visualizations using such mission actionable data. And while we create that, you can also interactively filter what we need to visualize and what we need to actually look into. And when we create such things, you can acknowledge the creators, and you can also create a citable DOI, which means each of those articles might have a separate persistent identifier such as DOI. But in this case, if we compare different things, and if I generate a visualization, I can create a DOI for that particular version of the comparison or the state-of-the-art comparison within the Open Research Knowledge Graph. And as a basis for that, the comparisons are the mostly used features within the Open Research Knowledge Graphs, but it doesn't have to be a comparison. You could also just represent an article, which we call as paper, and then it could be one of your favorite paper, or it could also be one of the favorite article that you have published. So you can actually extract salient features and make it as mission actionable. Now, one would ask, how would I make it mission actionable? We have something called as templates, where it is like filling a Google form, which is like extracting the data. So usually when you have a DOI, the Open Research Knowledge Graph system, once you log in and add an article, it looks up for the DOI and extracts all the metadata that's available. And then we have a template for establishing what methods you have used, what results that you have got, and to what research field it should belong, and what kind of information that you're adding. There are specific templates for that, and you can actually use those templates and add information. And for example, we also have automated information extraction, which would be provided with a different color in blue, suggesting that these are suggestions from the automated extraction, but as a human user, you can verify whether that is true and then add it to the mission actionable element. And currently we have that workflow where you come from templates and then you add papers, or you can also have a list of articles, and then from that list you can add papers, and then you can either create comparisons or visualizations and also create a review around that. Or you can just add papers and update the literature as and when new literature comes around, so that you can create more powerful visualizations. And now, coming back to that, who creates content in the Open Research Knowledge Graph? Can we allow the machines to do it? It is scalable, but it is not precise enough, as we see that there might be multiple issues with leaving completely machines take control of it. So it is not completely precise. But maybe we can use scientific communities in order to really create content with the assistance of the machine. So what we currently do is the gradations of automation, where we use machine in the loop, which means a human is assisted by the machine, so that you are having a pop-up suggestion of, okay, can you add this, because the machine had found these particular extractable features. But you as a human say that, okay, these are really important features, I would add them, but these are things that the machine have not recognized very precise enough, so I'm just going to ignore that. So that way, we are also assisting the machine using human in the loop. So these are kinds of the gradations that we have, so that we have a better scalability, so that we don't have to really go and read all the million articles, but as an information specialist or as an expert in the domain, one can make a definitive sense of things that can be extracted from these articles, and then one can quickly scan through that and then make sure that this information that is extracted by the machine is true. So we do a lot of human curation in the Open Research Knowledge Graph. And as I already mentioned, the curation in the Open Research Knowledge Graph is a crowd-based approach. So we have a lot of users who belong to different categories of domain experts. They could be information scientists. They could also be subject librarians and general librarians who are interested in actually accessing the content or actually just consuming the content and making sense out of that for different purposes. It could also be teachers for teachers and lecturers who would use this system in order for them to verify certain assignments, or also to co-create assignments together with students and so on. We are also supported by the user board and the advisory board of the Open Research Knowledge Graph in order to constantly work on this human-in-the-loop curation model. And as I was mentioning, scientific communities do a better job by creating the content in the Open Research Knowledge Graph. So we have something called as the observatories, which is akin to how we have a lot of stars in the sky, but then we create observatories in order to observe specific ones. So similarly, we have a lot of information that's available, and then we create a specific observatory for a community or a specific research discipline, and researchers can come together in order to define standards of their research. Like there could be metadata standards that is for them, and then there could be data schema standards that is specific for a discipline, and then they create the templates and then they leave that in the open so that other researchers in the community can then contribute towards these kind of observatories, so that a knowledge graph can be created for a particular research community. And what it helps with them is that they can actually follow data gaps and knowledge trends in their particular field, which is mostly machine actionable, and which means if they see a data gap, for example, ecologists have used this observatory methods within the Open Research Knowledge Graph, because collecting ecological data is very time consuming and it's very, very expensive, because you have to have a lot of sampling methods that's around the field. But if you look at how the data is collected and where exactly they need to focus, that is very important for them to really progress their research. So if they have environmental monitoring data from about soil, about air quality, about different things, and the weather, but they don't have data about a particular species, now they can only focus on collecting data about particular species, and now ecologists can work out how the ecological nature of this particular niche is developing across the years, or what can they predict in the future, and so on. So they are actually using this observatories for that specific purpose. So not only for ecologists, one can also create it for many different research communities, and also subject librarians were interested in looking at the open access trends, and they also created one of their observatories in order to really look into the open access trends and so on. So it could be any specific field, and if you're interested in running an observatory, you could contact us, and then we could set up the observatory, and then we would provide support in running such an observatory within the Open Research Knowledge Graph. So currently what we are dealing with is machine intelligence on one hand, where you have connected knowledge graphlets with machine language modeling, and on the other hand, we use a lot of human intelligence, which could actually augment the knowledge, the things that are generated by a large language model. We can use like curation methods and validation methods on that by using a lot of human intelligence. By combining both machine intelligence and human intelligence, we create neurosymbolic knowledge graphs, which should help us get rid of the hallucination, but which should also be scalable so that we do not have to be drowning in the kind of publication flood that I spoke about earlier. So the synergies between the large language models and the knowledge graphs are that on one hand, we have both the systems, which is the classical ORKG and the ORKG Ask, which uses the large language model. So the positives are that it is easy to use, and that it's easy to add publication, and the large language model can scan through a large number of publications. But the negative aspects are that they can have hallucinations, and it's not peer reviewed, because the machine does make sense of it, but then it needs to be peer reviewed by a human curator, and there is no machine actionability in the machine generated snippets. Whereas in the classical system, we have mission actionability, which is peer reviewable because a lot of human curation goes into the open research knowledge graph, and it is community controlled because different communities come together in order to set their own standards for metadata, data schema, and their templates. And so since it was harder to use and adding publication requires an effort, and it can only scan through a small selection of papers, we try to combine both of that. And the current workflow that we have is that you can use ORKG Ask as a system to start, because you can log in there, search for a question, and then search or save your search, and then come back and refine your search in different ways. And you can discover papers that are closer to each other. And then from the knowledge discovery tool, then you can come to the classical ORKG system, where you can add more curation details or let the community review do curation, and then have a community discussion around how this has been modeled, and then create a knowledge graph and feedback that into the system again. And then this goes in loop so that we have a knowledge mechanism that is extracted only from the published scientific literature and argumented with the human curated knowledge, so that it really becomes a powerful tool to ask questions and also to follow trends and knowledge gaps in different fields. And we also have something called as the ORKG Reborn approach, where while at the time of writing an article or providing a computational analysis for a data, you can actually create snippets of code and let it be recreated. And that is why we call it as a reborn approach, where in a computing environment, you can actually use some of the data snippets, or scientists can use such data snippets, and then they submit that data into a data repository. And from that, we can actually collect that information and then create the knowledge graph and then introduce into the curated knowledge graph within the open research knowledge graph. And this approach is called as the ORKG Reborn approach, which is one of the recent inclusions that we have done in our services that we provide, specifically for scientists who use a lot of computational environments. So with this, the research results from the outset of the publication, it becomes mission actionable, and it is reusable, which means people can test it and then reproduce the work of it, and then this way people can then maybe reduce the effect on redoing or reanalyzing things that do not work effectively. And with that, I kind of try to summarize what I've provided you here. We need to really rethink how scholarly communication works, because scholarly work can be realized as expressions other than a research article. So it could also be comparing state of art of the literature review and so on. And we need to make knowledge both human and mission actionable, and we do that in the open research knowledge graph by really making it mission actionable. But the moment we make it mission actionable, the structure for human readability is little more, it's not very clear, and that is why we have usually used the tabular structure, which humans can actually make sense of it, instead of making it as a knowledge graph that is running behind. And we use a crowd-based approach where we combine both domain experts, curators, data curators, and also information specialists in order to really model the research graph and then provide valuable information to the research community and library patterns in general. If you're really interested in working with the open research knowledge graph, we have now announced something called as the ORKG Curation Grants, which has an application process, and the deadline for that is, it has been released recently, and then the deadline for it is the next month, 11th of May. And then you can apply it together and then work with information specialist as a domain expert and try to create your own knowledge graph using this approach. And for doing this, you also get curation grant support as up to 400 euros per month. So you would be creating comparisons across your field. And there are also opportunities to work together with this reborn approach and so on. So with that, I would stop and thank you for allowing me to present this information with you all. So I would be happy to take questions, comments, criticisms, or emotional outbursts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vinodh. We have been absolutely being spellbound, with your such a marvelous presentation, which also speaks volumes of the very extraordinary and exemplary work which has been undertaken at ORKG. It's indeed greatly admired by each and everyone. And we could discover from your presentation that some of the very unique things that each one of us, who have been dealing with the libraries and have been, at helm of affairs for providing information to the users, one of the most missing links that we always have been seeing it in any of these knowledge portals that which have been designed and cultivating and harvesting knowledge. All of them have been so gracefully has been addressed in the initiative at TIB. And I think more and more there is a greater need that let the researcher and scholarly community, and also most importantly, the library community also to know about this. It's a very visionary work which is being undertaken. I must, greatly congratulate the entire team, also your good self, who have been instrumental in designing, this entire portal and have significantly been contributing to it. Some of the things, that you have shown, and especially about this comparative, the research, not much of research happens, but where is the tool, wherein we can do this comparison. And as you have very, in a very lucid manner, you have shown us that, so much of research being undertaken if we want to really carry out. And this really reminds me, of the great visionary Dr. Cole, who conceptualized DELNET. And this used to be, he was one who, for the first time, started off with this knowledge centers concept in India. And what you had shown me today, I have just been remembering, his desirables. He always used to say, can a day can come, Sangeeta, wherein out of this huge, large, information that is coming out, can there be a way wherein we can extract knowledge and can draw the comparatives? And by seeing this, I was just, I had nothing else but just to mention that the work which is being done at TIB and at ORKG, this entire team, it's simply, marvelous. It's a trendsetter. It is for the world. You have shown that this is what is the need of the hour. As you have also shown, the kind of a research which is being undertaken, the research outputs, that we have 2.5 million new articles, new publication which comes out, the kind of a research, the expenditures that we make, on the research, but exactly then what is being happening, to that research, are we able to really, make the use of it, unless and until we make a sense out of that, that knowledge extraction. And it's really, hats off, to TIB, to the entire diligent teams, who have been designing. And also you have shown that how this entire team being, and also a wonderful blending of not only the machine intelligence, the AI tools, but also the human intelligence. And I think this is also a strong case, displaying and in a very determined manner, showing to the world when we think about, is AI going to really, replace this entire human interventions? This is a case you have shown, no, it is like, human intelligence, we remain as a supreme holder to decide about it. Does it qualify, to be considered as an, as a knowledge? And as in this portal that, in the ORKG initiative, as you have shown that you do have an artificial intelligence, but you also have the human intelligence. So you do have the teams comprising of the librarians, comprising of the other domain experts who really qualifies, who really authenticates that, yes, this is what needs to be, cultivated and harvested, and is fit enough. Much grateful to you for being there. You have truly illuminated, enlightened us on something which we have not really been knowing. And the kind of this visionary portal, it's really, the world must really take an example, of this ORKG, and there is a greater need, we really would like to engage into some discussions, with you being there. And TIB we had, because the IFLA ILDS conference, I remember that was a TIB was the one, and that's how we met 15 years ago. And even for our document delivery, we used to get lot much of support, wherein even getting a paper print copies, in those times 15 years ago. So we'll be really happy to engage in some discussion that how from India, and how DELNET can play some role, as you have also mentioned about, this, you have the call for, this curation, research curation work, how they can. So we would really like to engage in some collaborative projects while from India, certain specific research outputs, and just would like to also mention, and this is also for our entire colleagues who are being there, that very recently we have launched a portal called GRIP, Global Research and Innovation Portal. And therein to highlight, some of the most premier research works being undertaken, the research projects being undertaken by the premier research institution, the NRF rank institution. And we will really be wanting to collaborate with TIB to see that how from India, how can we help in making it, as a very collaborative effort to bring in more of the research output coming out from India, and to contribute in some manner to this somewhat simply extraordinary. It's an exemplary work, and we heartily congratulate you and the entire team at TIB, and thank you so very much for making it, making it possible for us to know about this very wonderful, the hidden tool. And also one of the things that you mentioned, I think many things, to ponder about, the takeaways from the program, and also this comparison between the digitization and digitalization. Very aptly that you have mentioned that we need to really look into that. So it's not just simply the digitization of documents that we are always we have to really look into, the knowledge quotient, what ultimately, are we doing with that. So thank you so very much. My only curiosity out of this entire deliberations is how long TIB has been engaged with this, particular work, and what is it like only the TIB doing, or you do have the collaborators, in this entire work? Would you like to throw some light onto this, Dr. Vinodh?
Sure, ma'am. Thanks a lot for your appreciative words. Yeah, before I answer the question, I'm also very privileged that you mentioned that the words of Dr. Kaul, that it kind of is in parallel thoughts with what we are doing. So we are very grateful for that, that quick mention. So yeah, to answer your question, the Open Research Knowledge Graph has been with the TIB since 2000, and so the official launch was 2019. So we actually celebrated the, so we call it as official launch of the alpha release. So we celebrated the 5th year anniversary last year in May. So the project has been with TIB for like, yeah, it'll be 6th year in May this year. But the alpha release was like a prototype, and it was because it was released, and then for a while it was developed together with a lot of workshops with researchers to really figure out what basic features that we needed to have. So once that was all finished, the next one that they approached was to use it in large scale, and that is when, like, yeah, it was closer to the pandemic, so we focused really on creating such comparisons that would be valuable for different research areas. And I think one thing that happened good, well, not necessarily good, but then one thing that also helped us think in a way that how we can be creative in helping providing solutions for during the pandemic was that if you have such structures available in place, then it is also easier to track a lot of other pandemics that would be coming based on the published literature. And then, for example, the WHO epidemic surveillance folks, they are doing quite a lot of this, and they wanted to collaborate with us. So we have still not finalized that collaboration yet, but they were the ones who wanted to actually use the base of knowledge graph in order to really use the epidemic surveillance so that they can actually be informed about what would be the next pandemic that is going to not necessarily pandemic, but then they were focused on endemics in specific regions. So they were one potential collaborators we are still in talk with. But the other collaborators that we are working together is the Core service in UK, Core UK, headed by Peter North. So they are the ones who provide us the large data source that we use as a base for our ORKG Ask service. So that is one large collaborations that we have. So apart from that, we have internal collaborations that are together with the university in different areas where, so for example, Professor Zoranauer's position is actually a shared position between the TIB and the university. So there's quite a lot of researchers from the university who also contribute to causal inference and stuff like that, where which is again useful in kind of trying to learn and unlearn surveillance on epidemics, or even surveillance on security systems within the research on security systems, for example. So those are collaborations that we have internally, but the large external collaborations that we have is together with the core UK service. And yeah, now we are entering the 6th year, and we have closer to 2,000 active users who are contributing to the system at the moment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vinodh. And also this yet another aspect of this forecasting, that how this entire work also leads to the forecasting, and which is again something so very unique. And many of, because data sets even from India also, we do have some of the, the major, providers are being there. I think, the open collaborations, when we think about the open research knowledge graph, the open collaborations have to, at a global level, because you have certain, means everything is being laid. The platform is being there, it has been so wonderfully being designed. And now it's a matter of further expanding it, to rope in many more other providers, the data providers, so that more and more, content can come, which can get harvested. And then, it is like a single platform for having access to a lot much of the research output. But the features, I must say, they are something, the state of the art, and not much of what we are seeing the features here. We can think about that, setting those algorithms, and it has, there's nothing, it's like it's something that you always have dreamed of, that this is something which is missing. But yes, there's ORKG, and we will be happy to promote, this platform by giving a link, on our portals, because we have more than 9,000 institutions who access, and their researchers and scholars who are accessing. Even our own library fraternity, they access, and it will be, a small contribution from DELNET in promoting, and letting the people to know about it, for whom it is being made, and this is, we'll be more than happy to do that, with the permission from DIB. We will be really glad to do that. Yes.
Sure, ma'am. That will be wonderful, because our aim is also that, as it's a publicly funded project, we also wanted that the library networks know about this more, because, on one hand, we are also trying to reach out to researchers directly, but I think it's the library networks and librarians are really wonderful people who are more powerful in actually educating the researchers, or even educating regular patrons. So I think it will be wonderful to really have us mentioned in the DELNET portal. Yeah. I will figure out what exactly is the because sometimes German bureaucratic procedures can be a little longer.
Yes.
I will figure that out, and
yes.
I'll definitely contact you.
We will formally be requesting, and even we will be very happy to share also the utilization, the usage, that how many of researchers and scholars and the users have clicked onto the link, through DELNET, and have gone to the site. So we'll be really, really happy enough, to further, be of any assistance in this. So thank you very much, Dr. Vinodh. Quickly, I know that we are sharp here, and it's a working day for you. You are at the work desk. So we'll just like to take a few minutes of yours more, and quickly would like to make the floor open for questions. And yes, you can see also in the chat box, we have placed firstly, the URL for the site, and then also, apart from that, Dr. Vinodh also has made it available to you, the link for the applications for the curation grant. So, and that is being there in the chat box, and you can follow that. Quickly now, it's a time, we will just have a 5 minutes interactions, and because we fully appreciate, Dr. Vinodh being here with us, and he is at the work desk, though here in, we are towards, like, it's at 4 o'clock here, but for him, it's, he has just started the day. So we would just quickly would like to request all our colleagues, if you're wanting to ask any question, raise your digital hands, or you may perhaps post your message in the chat box, which will be a little more faster. Please put your question in the chat box, and we'll be really happy to ask to our esteemed speaker and to get his views on that. So quickly requesting you, because of paucity of time, we are not doing an audio round for the questions. We request you kindly place your question in the chat box, and we will be taking the questions from here. We would appreciate your understanding in this matter, because we don't really have much of the time to get connected in the audio right now. So any of the questions, okay, there is a question from Mr. Shiva Kumar Khandare, and he's just wanting that in which ways do you think that ORKG stands taller than the Google Scholar? Must be someone, you know, who has been using Google Scholar for long, and wanting to know that, you know, what is, in which ways the scope and the coverage. That's for you, Dr. Vinodh, to kindly comment on, please.
Sure, that's an excellent question, because Google Scholar is something that often people just go. But Google Scholar, I think, yeah, after the advent of large language models, now Google Scholar is able to answer better questions, and also using natural language question answering. But what is easier with ORKG Ask is that ORKG Ask looks only at the published literature, the 80 million scholarly records that I mentioned. So it's mostly used by researchers to ask very specific questions. So I've used Google Scholar before, particularly for a project where we wanted to try and understand what are the persistent identifiers that Google Scholar is trying to bring. It could bring any material that is having this keyword. So sometimes it was also bringing a lunch menu of some institution, of a research institution. So Google Scholar does have certain problems, but it's one of the widely used ones. But if you think of the larger perspective, it is a commercial entity. So I don't know how many of you also know that there are thousands of projects that are scrapped by Google. So there's like interest initially, and then when it does not pay off them either financially, or if there's a lot of things that are involved, they scrap that project. So Google or Alphabet as an organization can do that at any time. But we as a publicly funded research organization are working in the interest of researchers. So we are not going to shut down the service as long as the internet exists, or as long as Germany exists as a nation. So we have enough funding, and this service would be mostly focused on researchers and not researchers and people who are interested in research-based knowledge rather than on a very generic sense. So it could be that a Google Scholar might be shut down at some point. So it is also not community owned; it's owned by an entity. Whereas we have community governance, which means our advisory board and user board recommends us to do certain things, which is in alignment with what the user community wants. And we're also developing a lot of features, not necessarily similar features to Google, but then features that are requested by researchers that are not really solved by other agencies or other organizations. So I think that is one advantage, which is community governance. And as a community-owned or a community-owned infrastructure, what we can also do is that if TIB decides that we are now going to stop this as a service, no, that won't happen, because it is community governed, and our user board has an input on how the service should evolve. For example, maybe in the next 5 years, large language models are not anything anymore, and something else comes up, and then the user community for us says that this is what you have to focus on, then our focus would shift on there based on the strategic values. So it is not like we shut down a service completely, but then we align that with our user needs. So
that's great. That's simply great. Yeah, Dr. Vinodh. Yes, definitely. Thank you. Just two questions, because I could see that repeatedly they are being asked by a couple of our colleagues here. Firstly, Dr. Vinodh, there's a question from Mr. Anna Puruni Vishwanathan wanting to know, what are the prerequisites to establish an observatory for ORKG? As you mentioned, that you have got observatories in various domain specialized areas, and how one means how an institution who desires to become an observatory and contribute as an observatory to our ORKG, what are the prerequisites and how one can do. One question is this, and the second also I've mentioned it to you. You may have to go again to the site because many of our colleagues here are wanting to know how to enroll, as a user, how to create an account in ORKG, though it's being there. But if we can quickly take them to the site and just show them, I think that would be really great. So
sure,
firstly
definitely.
is what are the prerequisites for establishing ORKG, this observatory?
Yeah, definitely, I'll do that. So as a prerequisite, one needs to create an account. So that's the most important prerequisite. The other one is that you need to be familiarized with the workflows of the ORKG, because sometimes the data modeling of how you imagine is different. And most often, people use Open Research Knowledge Graph for things like doing literature survey or doing systematic analysis. So this is really very useful for a lot of people who do such kind of work. Yeah, that is one prerequisite. And the other prerequisite is that you have so usually observatories are run by communities. So it's not like one individual interested in doing it. So you have to have at least 2 or 3 people who would be interested in running that. And then there's a community need. And once you contact us, we'll set up the observatory, and then you could become like initial user of the Open Research Knowledge Graph. And then you could like try and play around with that, because you don't have to put everything open. There is an incubating server where you can play around, where you can do like mistake. Yeah, you can use it as a learning platform where you can make mistakes, but then the incubating server won't be reflected in the live one. So that way you can play around with that. So we provide that kind of opportunity for that. So let me quickly share my screen. And when you go to ORKG, so you have a sign-in process here. When you click on the sign-in, yeah, so it asks you for a username and email. Since I already have an account, I would generally do that. But if you are a new user, you go to register, and all you have to use is like select a username, a password, and you confirm the password, and you create a display name for your username, and you fill in your email. And since we've taken data privacy and things like that very, very seriously in Germany, and particularly in TIB, you won't get any spam emails from us. In fact, even if I want to know who had registered, I have no way of knowing it. Even from within the team, I do not know your email addresses. So it's only that while you sign in, you opt in for a newsletter or something. So then you receive that, but you could also opt out for that. So this is how you create an account with us. And the creation of account is completely free, and it is open radically, which means once you register as a user, you can extract the data from ORKG openly, and you can also add data in an open way. So there is, the only thing that would be visible in the system would be the username or the display name for us. So that is the way to register in the ORKG. So we have also migrated to new key clock system, which means earlier it used to be that if you forgot your password, then you might have to contact us, but now we don't even have that thing. So it is all automated in a local server to which we don't have access to. So we don't even know which email addresses are associated with the account, but we only know the names of the user. For example, if I go to the ORKG, and you can see who had contributed recently. For example, I'm not able to scroll. Yeah, here you can see that these are people who had done latest updates. So 3 minutes ago, some Sergey Sonfak had added some paper. Some Eleni had added a paper. I mean, I know Eleni because they've been working closely. So I know this person only because I know them that they were working. But other than that, I don't have any means of knowing what their email address is and so on. So yes. So and also, as if you're a top contributor, you would also see those top contributors in the list and stuff like that. And the current state of the art of the system, you can actually go to our statistics and see statistics of how many papers are added, how many comparisons are there, we have closer to 2,600 or 2,700 users. One more user to join, maybe that will make 2,700. And we have 35 observatories at the moment. So I'll just quickly click on to show you how these observatories look like. So you have these observatories here, and then so it deals with a specific research problem. So you have like a small description of the observatory, and you have the organizations that are involved with the observatory, and people who had contributed to the observatory, and so on. So yeah,
do we also have, Dr. Vinodh, do
yes.
we also have some geographical locations, from where the researchers and scholars whose works have been cited here? What are the major countries from where our data means, especially the contributors, the research contributions, from which specific countries? Do we have anything?
Unfortunately, we do not have that data. What we know, at least for our observatories, is that because for observatories, people contact us and they are affiliated to an organization. So by that, we know some statistics about where our user base for the observatory lies. But if you just go into the ORKG and then look for, let's say, papers.
Because sometimes the researchers, they also look for a particular country specific, or they wish to draw also the comparisons, with the scenario here in India and the same scenario in some of the other countries. So because in country comparisons also happen, we talk about in anything, for that matter, so it does at times that kind of information. So from the back end, perhaps, you can always fetch that, So
yes, so we do have an option to link link an ORCID ID with the creator. Okay. So this is possible, but we are not mandating it because of data privacy issues. Because the moment it's linked with ORCID ID, then we are able to identify the user. Which is up to the user. So the user can decide whether that is what they want, because at the end, it's like creating another research artifact for which they wanted to be credited for, which I think is good. But again, with ORCID ID, we can only decipher the current affiliation of the institution if that is allowed, and that is the only thing that we are able to do that. I think this was also a feature that was developed by the user request, where they wanted to actually use the linking of ORCID ID together with, for example, using it together with.
One last question, Dr. Vinodh. One last question. Would like to know, and this is about the content delivery. Do we have any RSS feeds, or do we have an integration wherein an individual user would like to get informed whenever there is a new research work which has been uploaded and being a part of the ORKG, and then they would like to refer to it? So do we have any such means also to pushing the content, the selective records onto their email IDs, or at least through RSS intimation, like that they can get the intimation about the new research being any kind of a new work which is being added onto this portal. Do we have any facility here?
Yes and no, because back when Twitter used to be Twitter, so we did a lot of lot of ways in which people can access things, and based on that, the social media policy changed, and then the way in which people can interact with it changed. So currently we have a link to Mastodon. We don't have a direct RSS feed, but people can create their own RSS feeds using our APIs, because we are kind of radically open. But if an RSS feed is something that the user, if it's a strongly requested user feature, we would definitely reconsider negotiating the social media and outreach policy with TIB, and then we would try to change certain things.
Because that's one of the things, Dr. Vinodh, that's also out of our own deliberations when we interact, with a huge, large researcher scholar community, the selective, the personalized information, so everyone, because even we can see that, when we think about the 76 million articles being there, and then they just really want to keep themselves focused on their particular research. So it's like a personalized delivery, what matters the most to them. I think that would really be something, what the research community, and that would give a little more value addition, when we think about the information, users, means those who are looking for, because they really want to see to it that in which ways, what is the kind of a content being there, and as and when, as every moment we are seeing a new content getting added, and then if they have the provisions of getting notified, I think that will get a more, not only the relevancy, but also in some ways, it will be really a helping aid for researchers and scholars.
Yeah,
Simply great, Dr. Vinodh. I think these deliberations of ours, this is just a beginning we have made today, and we're really looking forward to your visit to India, to the home country, and also to host you here at DELNET, and to really engage in, some in-person interactions with you, and also getting all our colleagues. But I must say that we have really initiated today. I also must say that this acronym, it's we have to remember the knowledge all the time. It's an organization who is heading it all the way, and this orkg.org. So it's basically org.org, and which is quite easy enough for anyone to think about the most massive work being undertaken by TIB. And I must say that the National Library of Science and Technology at Hannover in Germany, the kind of collection that we have at the National Library, across the globe, I strongly vouch for it, because we have seen in the cases across the globe, those references may not be available in the field of engineering and technology and science and technology, which we are able to get it, at TIB. And we are indeed being so much impressed, with this massive, marvelous work being undertaken under the aegis of TIB, and to the entire team who are putting in so much of their dedicated efforts for it. And I must say that you have certain, everyone would like to emulate, these models, and would really like to not only to create, because we know that it's not everyone's take to do this, but everyone would like to really participate in, whether as in for using it, or also to contribute it to make it as a global resource. Already this is a global resource, but also the country specific contributions also to get it more enriched. So thank you so very much, Dr. Vinodh. We can't thank you enough for such a wonderful deliberations this afternoon, and making this, truly this webinar as a highly enriching session, truly an enlightening one. And may we have a pleasure, and this, I bet, we are sending it across to you, through courier. We will get it, nicely packed in such a way that this gel-studded elephants, reaches Hannover at TIB very, very safely, and we'll be really delighted, that if you accept this as a token of a very warm, sincere appreciation for the work that you are engaged with. Also, your readiness, you have been so kind and gracious in accepting the invite, and we remain truly grateful to you. God bless you, Dr. Vinodh. Truly an honor and pleasure. On behalf of DELNET, on behalf of all the colleagues who have been here, not only from India, from different nooks and parts of the world, who have been here today and who have witnessed such wonderful deliberations by you, informing us, sensitizing us, apprising us about this wonderful work which is being undertaken. All our admiration and appreciation, to the entire team, who has conceptualized, working day and night to see to it, and bringing in the technology. But the best part we have been able to notice is this, having the human intervention intact, using, the AI. And this is one of a strong case, if anyone says, like, they'll say, oh yes, you can see this, and have this blending, such a wonderful blending, and thank you so very much. It has truly been a great honor and pleasure, Dr. Vinodh, and thank you so much for accommodating the request, having so much of time. We have already half an hour more, and I can understand you are being at the work, and then you have been so kind and gracious in being there with us and sharing your knowledge and the wonderful work. And I must say to each and everyone who is being connected that we feel so very proud that Dr. Vinodh Ilangovan from Trichy, our own very Indian colleague, who is really bringing so much of, repetition to the organization at TIB, and engaged with the state of the art, technologies and the work. And we really feel so very proud of you. And we really feel so glad and feel so very blessed that we are able to really interact with you, and you are making us, it's something that we always have been wanting to see, and we are so very happy that you are, working with our other colleagues there at ORKG and bringing in this very highly transformation, the transformation that you would like to, and getting into that the knowledge transformation, what libraries have been doing it, and this is what we ultimately have to think about. The mindset, this entire vision behind this conceptualization, it deserves our very special appreciation and admiration. Do convey our very warm regards, to all the colleagues at TIB, and we had as I said earlier, very long association. Meeting them in person, it was so wonderful that we have been able to have you today with us, Dr. Vinodh, and would also like to share that Dr. Vinodh has voluntary, said that he would like to also share the PDF copy of this presentation, and those of you who are wanting, so DELNET will be very happy to pass it on to you, and this entire deliberations would also be available on the YouTube channel with the permission from Dr. Vinodh, and we would be making it live in another 24 hours time, and we will be really, really happy to engage with you, Dr. Vinodh, again. And it has truly been a pleasure, for each one of us in having you here and getting so much benefited. It was immensely an honor and pleasure for us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm humbled and privileged to present this, and I'm also very grateful for your kind memento.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much indeed. And we would also like to thank all our colleagues who have been able to join us across from India and also from any other continents in being there. Your presence has greatly simply been valued by us. We really look forward to having you back again in the future webinars, and you continue to always inspire us. And we have, it's such a pleasure always, to remain connected. And this has been one of the most memorable webinars and most enriching and enlightening webinar, I must say that, and all our special appreciation and sincere thanks to Dr. Vinodh Ilangovan for making it possible for us to have this. Thank you very much, Dr. Vinodh, and for everyone to mention, as a token of our warm remembrance of this program, a special certificate of appreciation for your being here would be sent to you in yet another 1 hour's time. So you can check your emails by 5 o'clock IST, and whenever when you open this, please do remember the wonderful deliberations that we have witnessed today. Thank you so very much. May God bless you. Stay happy, do stay connected, and we really look forward to having you back again. And thank you very much, Dr. Vinodh. And I really look forward to receiving a pic of yours with this well-studied elephant, at your work desk, and we will really feel very blessed, Thank you so very much. Much grateful, much obliged, in your being there with us. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you all. Thank you very much, and we really look forward to having you back again soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you.